What's up, guys? This is Tom Burkhardt from Car-Revs Daily, going out for a first drive review in the 2020 Hyundai PALISADE. This is Hyundai's first 8-passenger SUV, and it looks so cool. We're driving it in the mountains up in Asheville, North Carolina, and I'm very excited to show you guys some of the cool elements of the PALISADE. Talk about where it fits in the marketplace, and especially versus its platform sibling, the Kia Telluride, and then close with a little info on pricing and yeah, some other details there. So first off, saw this pretty cool gravel road, so let's go see where it goes. So Hyundai's positioning their version of the full-size SUV, I guess it doesn't go far. They're positioning this as more of a luxury option, whereas Kia is going for more of a rugged positioning in terms of how their vehicle is tuned and how it will be marketed. So this Palisade definitely more of a luxury feel right away, and looks very cool. It has a lot of the coolest elements of the Telluride in that like cool sort of like kind of boxy-ish glass house and sort of slightly upscale and premium Range Rover style proportions, and it's and a little bit of just cool elegance in its design. But Palisade has a much cooler looking nose, so that's always good news. Telluride is kind of hard to look at, whereas this Palisade really looks premium. Definitely looks like the king of Hyundai's range, which was their goal in doing the design, with like a lot of layered elements in the giant full frame grille. What they're calling like a crocodile eye LED, so that like single line of LED that starts in the upper corners of the hood and then winds down through the mid bumper. And even cool details like the way the chrome and the cross hatching of the grille extends down into the lower air dam. This is just a really cool and well designed machine, and they've done that design obviously on purpose to really make this car worthy of their new flagship. But before driving Palisade, and actually even after driving it, after driving Telluride, the only thing I've been a little worried about is the power that's available. So standard power for the Palisade comes from 3.8 liter V6, making 291 horsepower, 262 foot-pounds of torque. And that is standard across all the trims. So you get the base SE starting from about 32K, and then a mid-level SEL, and then up to this limited that starts at like 44 and has everything. There's like almost no options on the limited. So we're going uphill right now, which of course never really helps for really enthusiastic performance. We were just at Mount Mitchell, which is like, I don't know, 7,000 feet or something. So we're seeing not only how the Palisade does going uphill, but how it does at a little bit of elevation, which of course saps a lot of power from all engines. So it does well. It feels pretty potent and has good kickdown, but not a ton of extra. So that's the thing that kind of worries me, is for an 8-passenger vehicle with intentions of being able to tow 5,000 pounds. Turn around here. You kind of want some extra power in reserve, so that when you've got that actual 8-person setup, you've got plenty of power to spare. So that's an issue a little bit with Palisade, but it's about the only one I can think of. Still about 8.5 seconds to 60 miles an hour. So going downhill, it obviously feels a lot better. And there's a ton of great news about this drivetrain beyond just me wishing it had a V8, wishing everything had a V8. So the really great stuff with the powertrain is about it's basically its insulation and refinement, and the overall performance of the 8-speed automatic is exceptional. Insulation is really good. It really helps to have this shift by wire, so just like button controlled shifters instead of a shift knob. That frees up a lot of space underneath there, and it also just makes the engagement feel really premium and really classy. So this afternoon we're taking the Palisade off-road at the Biltmore off-road course, and right now I have it in sport, and I've got it in 4x4 lock, which creates a 50-50 lock split and doesn't appear to have a speed cap on it. So I've also got traction control off, so we'll do a little grassy start. So pretty good. No wheel spin really. I mean, a teeny little bit that was managed. But this is just such an insulated and well executed drive experience. In your first block, you'll be absolutely shocked at how smooth and refined and premium Palisade feels on the road. So, I mean, this drivetrain is great for almost everybody in its target audience. It's just power mad freaks like me, and maybe you, who wish it had a little bit more. Shift paddles are standard for this 8-speed automatic transmission, and they do seem to work pretty well. You can see, like, I'm driving fairly hard on this road for what is effectively, and for all intents and purposes, a family crossover that will very rarely be pushed to the edge like this. It's doing great. Doing really well. Brakes are holding on. Steering is exceptionally precise. It really feels really well weighted. Very European and very German in that way. And overall cabin refinement and insulation is stellar. It is so good. Really, really pleased with that. So how did they get the ride quality and and just like so much silence and great bump absorption effects, you know, versus like the Santa Fe XL, which was, you know, about 4 inches smaller from all dimensions, but really felt a lot more wobbly on big bumps and was just a little more wayward. So there we got another Palisade over there. So that's another limited. It's a cool looking truck. I think I went the wrong way out of that last turnaround. So we'll go back downhill again. Oh yeah, some nice twisty roads here on the Blue Ridge Parkway here in North Carolina. So very beautiful, as you can see. So the ways that they got it to go over bumps in a much more resolved way than any Hyundai SUV I've ever driven is a couple-fold. So the first thing is chassis rigidity. So they basically have created these like 3 giant hoops of of high-strength steel that go all around the passenger compartment, right at the B pillar, and then behind at the C pillar, and right at the D pillar too. So those basically are just like super rigid, and they hook into the rest of the, it's a pretty high, intensive use of high strength steel. I think they said it was like 40, maybe 45% or something, which is very high versus other vehicles in the class. And that helps to make the body feel super rigid, but also not have it be an enormous overweight beast. So weight was obviously a concern because the V6 was the primary motivator. No V8 available here, and no turbo for a couple of years either. It really feels like it could use about 350 horsepower, whereas we have, like now my foot is on the floor, and we're going, but if we had a full 8 passengers and maybe a little boat or a trailer behind us, it would be struggling a little bit. But some of the other ways, beyond chassis rigidity, is just like hyper insulation. They've really gone to town with all the insulation and NVH materials. So that extends to like the actual body in white and the chassis design. So there's like, in the whole floor is basically reinforced with rubber damped insulation everywhere. There's a lot of like foam filler inside all of the, inside all the pillars, and in everywhere that could create like an echoey cabin is all just like solid. And the effect is like fantastic. It makes the car feel so effing premium. It's great. I mean, we can hear the engine on hard throttle, but in regular driving, it's extremely refined, extremely comfortable, and just a peach. So another big way that they have managed bump impact harshness and created a really smooth ride while having good control around corners is to go with a company like Sachs for the dampers. So Sachs, obviously very, very well known for providing some of the highest quality suspension components and suspension systems to race cars and European luxury cars. And Hyundai traditionally, like, they'll only buy from like a tier 1, like an A-list type of supplier like that if they can't create something that's better. So what that means to me is that these were just such phenomenal dampers in terms of controlling a lot of mass around corners, that they became something that was a must-have, especially for this luxury positioning versus, like we said, the Telluride going more rugged. So, awesome dampers, super rigid chassis, amazing insulation, and an overall ride and handling compromise that feels just about perfect. Even driven hard around these corners, it really hangs on. It doesn't feel, scary or alarming at all. having this terrific steering and really great drive position, of course, also really helps. Something I do wish right off the bat. So we're in the, so as I'm adjusting it, I was adjusting the seat. Okay, so that's like lumbar, lower lumbar. Not adjustable side bolsters, which I sort of thought it had, and then it doesn't have an adjustable seat base squab, which can be really nice on really premium cars, just to support your underleg more. It really helps on long drives, especially. So, I mean, this car is exceptional in terms of its refinement and overall luxury feel. It does so well there. I mean, buyers are going to absolutely love it. And does it feel worth the price? Oh my God. For like the 32 and like anything in the 30s, and Palisade is one of the most comfortable and luxurious vehicles you can get for the price. It feels a lot quieter and like it has a little bit better insulation and refinement than the VW Atlas. Feels like it rides softer than the Atlas, a little bit firmer than cars like Highlander, but this Palisade is going bang up against the new Explorer. So that car has you know, a much longer wheelbase for 2020, and is also just gets a total redo. So this Palisade is going after Explorer, and it's going to do really well at that, both in terms of like all of its insulation and all that comfort stuff, but also in terms of like pure capability. So that's like 5,000 pound tow rating. I think like 88 cubic feet of storage with the, there's no Santa Fe XL. So that's the car this directly replaces. 88 cubic feet of storage feet behind the first row, and then it's just, and then like sort of trumps the Explorer in a lot of counts, like, and Pilot, by the way, like in legroom for a couple of the rows, especially in the second row. This Palisade has a huge second row. Captain's chairs are standard from the SEL and limited trims, but you can get a bench as an option that takes seating up to 8 versus 7 with the captain's chairs. And it's just like, so this is basically everything the Explorer can do, Palisade can do like a little bit better, except for towing, where it's down 200 pounds, and it's down about, you know, what is that, 59 horsepower versus the 350 that is available in the EcoBoost V6 in the top Explorer Limited. So, very, very fierce competitive segment. I mean, the competitors, there's like more than a dozen that are also, they're all vying for these family and lifestyle outdoorsy SUV and crossover shoppers who don't want the compromises of like a body-on-frame SUV, which of course, as we know, is like abysmal fuel economy, bad ride, bad handling. I mean, they're huge in town, they're hard to park, and they're generally just a lot more expensive. So these crossovers that are as big as a crossover has ever been have a great mix of like that easy in-town handling and efficiency. I don't think that's the same road. Is that the same road? Well, we'll see. Let's find out. So yeah, these crossovers are great because they can do it. They can almost do it all. So I've got, oh, it's in manual. So as you know, your boy loves a good gravel road. So we got traction control and everything off. We were just in sport, we'll put it in 4x4 lock, so that locks it in 50-50 versus going like 65-35 and up to 50-50 in sport. You've got other modes like Eco and Eco, Snow, and Comfort, which it defaults to, and Smart, which is an adaptive setting. That's new for Hyundais. Pretty cool. But yeah, this lock setting is what we're going to use when we're going off-roading later, and it's pretty trusty. I mean, that 50-50 split holds, you know, all the way through and up to highway speeds. So it doesn't really, what I'm noticing here is that like where Telluride in the lock setting, it really changes the steering. You know, the steering becomes like a lot meatier in Telluride when you're in lock. Like you can, it almost feels like it has, I don't know, it's just, it's a little interesting in that way. Whereas I'm going at lock in the Palisade, it doesn't change the steering feel very noticeably at all. And basically, I mean, it's just all benefits. There's no downsides to having it locked besides possibly fuel economy. Fuel economy, another place where these crossovers do a lot better than traditional SUVs. We're not going to go too crazy here. We've got a white limited example with full paintwork, so we don't want to scratch it up or anything, but drive a little quicker on the way back. So, yeah, so this Palisade does pretty well. It's about, with all-wheel drive, it's about 22 in the city and about 24 or 26 on the highway, which is really good. It's very respectable. The 8-speed automatic really helps there. And something else like versus Telluride and that steering feel thing, it's kind of interesting. You know, these vehicles were obviously developed on a shared platform and built in the same place. Man, this is a sweet road. All right, well, we're gonna keep going on this. Anyway, so yeah, so pretty good stuff there. Very, very, very efficient, and then this feels pretty capable. All right, well, we'll turn back here. We gotta get back to the roads. So yeah, but basically these vehicles were developed together, and I think it's interesting that as the Palisade is coming out like a full 6 to 8 months later, it's this car had more time in the oven, had more time to really bake, and I think you can kind of feel that in the drive demeanor.
All right, I'm talking here.
So a little more time in the oven is always nice. You know, it helps the engineers to really perfect all of the systems, and especially the refinement. So I think it's a great vehicle versus its competitors, and also versus Telluride. It's really going to be, they're very similar vehicles, so it's pretty subjective. You know, it'll be about looks and you know, maybe which dealer is even closer might be the swaying factor. They're both great, and this is a huge achievement for Hyundai to be in this 8-passenger segment and come out of the blocks like with such a great car. I mean, versus like the Borrego, which was that Kia truck-based SUV from a couple years ago that was came out right when the fuel economy crisis was going on. Or, excuse me, or the gas prices were like spiking. So that car didn't really find an audience. It didn't have good refinement, and although it had some of the benefits of a truck-based SUV, it really didn't excel in places, the real-world family situations that owners are going to use the vehicles in. So this car is a lot more rational. It goes for a lot more practical appeal with a huge dash of luxury in the mix for both Telluride and Palisade, but particularly so for this Palisade. Okay, so that's where it fits in the marketplace. I mean, obviously, biggest competitors we mentioned, like the Explorer and Pilot, are right up there. But then bestsellers like the Highlander are in the mix as well. And really, this car feels a lot more gigantic than the Highlander. It feels more practical with all those seats folded down, and a little bit smarter. So, I mean, the safety features on this Palisade are so ridiculously comprehensive that they're amazing. And a couple new things that I've never even heard of. Like this car, for example, on the limited trim, has some really cool stuff. I'm not sure if you can see this. When you put on your blinker, over here in the 12-inch TFT gauge panel that comes on the limited, you've got a view of your blind spot, so cameras in the mirror are looking back. And so it works on both sides, whereas the Honda only has it on one side and it comes up in the main display here. Here it's in both of them, and it's really great. That's in addition to rear blind spot monitor, cross traffic alert, lane keep, forward collision prevention, auto cruise, lots of other stuff. So some of the other ones I hadn't heard of, you know, it has 2 levels of standard, 2 levels of available rear occupant detection. It's got a standard system that is on all the trims, and then the more sophisticated one that actually uses ultrasonic sensors to let you know via a horn honk or a notification on your Blue Link control that there's something in the back seat. That's really cool for kids. And then another system is that if you slow down the car and a child were going to get out, like let's say they were going to get out on the left side, for example, or get out on either side, and the blind spot system senses that there's another vehicle coming up fast, it basically will lock the doors and it won't let the child get out into that traffic. So that's just sort of like really smart and thoughtful. There's a couple other really cool systems that I'm just forgetting right now, but they've done an awesome job on safety. They've done a really, really good job on safety, and obviously with all this high strength steel, are really going for a 5-star crash and all that stuff. All right, so it did well on the off-road, a little bit of a gravel section. I mean, very trusty. I was looking for a little bit of sense of the handling dynamics, which feel very neutral, very not any understeer to speak of, which is awesome. Another cool feature for practical family stuff that is related to that suspension piece, I forgot to mention, is that it has self-leveling dampers or self-leveling suspension in the back on the top trim levels. So that's awesome if you have a ton of people back there or cargo in like the first quarter mile. Then the suspension is actually a mechanical pump into the shock itself to make it firmer and have a self-leveling, ride height control back there while maintaining your your damping. Oh shit, 914s. This must be a Porsche rally. Oh, this is a 911. Oh, these are cool. Yeah, so Blue Ridge Parkway, you get a lot of enthusiast guys. It's pretty cool. They probably think we're on a Hyundai PALISADE rally, which we kind of are. So that's where it fits in the marketplace. Any Wishlist stuff, I gotta say, it feels very, very well done. Pricing feels extremely fair. I mean, I think at this limited trim level, it would be really easy to imagine this as a $55,000 truck, and instead it's 10 grand less than that, which is awesome. There are price advantages for Palisade up and down the range. So like the base, the base or the SEL is basically like 4 or 5 grand cheaper than a similarly equipped Explorer, and then at the top level it goes up to it's like 7 grand cheaper, 4 grand cheaper than the Atlas. I don't know, a little bit cheaper than the it's just basically like about 4 grand cheaper than a lot of its rivals, which top out at about 49, 50K. Whereas this thing is coming as delivered at like 45.7. So, I mean, very, very good value there. The thing that I would encourage drivers to do is go for the SEL with some of the option packages, or potentially, or this limited, which is, Hyundai's really simplified that and and the limited has literally everything and no options, which is awesome. But yeah, I'd go for the nicest one, because then you get like all of the greatest features, like the dash display, for example, goes to like that full 12-inch panel versus like old gauges and a 7-inch, and then in the base one it's like old gauges and a 4-inch or something. Like, it's just everything basically gets better as the trim levels go up. But the core vehicle in itself, like those Sachs shocks and the drivetrain are all standard for all the different trims. Really impressed with this paddle shifting. So I'm impressed that it will downshift, pretty respectably and quickly. So this is a good motor. It's good. It has plenty of power when there's not a ton of people in the car. But as we mentioned, it would worry me a little bit in the mountains or something. It genuinely sounds pretty good. So smooth, so insulated. Owners are gonna love this truck. All right, so Palisade, other wish list items. I mean, it would be cool if I honestly, I got nothing. There's 4 interior color combinations, a bunch of really premium colors for the outside, and just a lot of great stuff to report. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please go over and check out the full written review over on car-revs-daily.com in a couple weeks, and go drive this car. Palisade's available now. It's just arriving in dealerships now in July, and it's a stunning vehicle. It's going to be a huge seller for Hyundai worldwide, for good reason. It's a terrific car. It looks a lot better than Telluride, and it rides and drives a little bit smoother too. Alrighty, we'll see you guys next time. This is Tom Burkhardt from Car-Revs Daily in the 2020 Hyundai Palisade.